The revolution already occurred. By Withered Rose. It is standard right-wing parlance to warn of the coming communist revolution, the moment when the left really takes control and begins Holodomor 2.0. Almost as standard is the lamentation of the Cultural Revolution of the 60s and 70s launched by the New Left. I do not deny that tough times are ahead, that there are trends pointing towards a Holodomor-type event one, or that there was a cultural revolution in the 60s and 70s aided by an aggressive terror campaign. Looking at the legislation coming out of the United States federal government, whether it be the importation of 14 million new Democratic voters or packing the Supreme Court with leftist ideologues, and then noticing how much these politicians, along with the cathedral, hate white Christians. I am very concerned about the United States going the way of Bolshevism. Concerns about a future tyranny or lamentations for the world prior to the 60s, however, often make us forget that we are already living in a post-revolutionary society. The revolution that preceded our age was more radical than any revolution prior and any revolution on the horizon, yet almost imperceptible to the average man. Prior to this revolution, the sciences, lived experience, and history were saturated with teleology. There was a cosmic goal towards which all things moved, and to truly understand a thing was to understand its telos. Aristotelian physics was the scientific paradigm, and formal and final causes were integral to any scientific explanation. Point 2 The social order was understood to be divinely ordained, the sovereign appointed by God, and the castes a result of providence. Believing they had their standing by the grace of God, the aristocracy bound themselves by the nobles' oblige and became guardians of the peasantry and land. Point 3 A nation's fate was often understood to rest on the faithfulness of the sovereign to God. And the success and failures of a nation were always understood in terms of God's favor. This traditional order began to fall with the Great Schism between East and West Christendom, and it crumbled further with the Protestant Reformation dividing West Christendom, but the revolution truly began with Isaac Newton's mechanistic physics replacing Aristotle's teleological physics. Inspired by Newton, many philosophers, culture curators and political theorists began the task of removing teleology from all aspects of life, eventually leading to the French Revolution and the revolutions of 1848, in which the outward forms of the traditional order fell. Monarchy gave way to democracy as a theocentric universe gave way to an anthropocentric universe. As above, so below, from theory comes praxis. The political revolutions were only possible after God was dead, for as long as God was the center of life, as long as teleology permeated all sciences, there could be no rebellion against what was taken to be a social order ordained by God. Christianity certainly remained, and still does, but it degraded to mere moralism. Whereas Christianity used to center around initiation into the life of the Trinity, the divinization of man, it became, during the modern revolution, just another system of morals. The age we now live in is a world where God is dead. Academia rejects all notions of teleology and will laugh you out the door if you even suggest the possibility of non-material reality. Christianity, in large part, is merely about being a nice person. Political considerations have not to do with being faithful to God, but only to do with power relations. Sovereignty comes not from above, but from below. Our aristocracy has no notion of the nobles oblige and are, for the vast majority, only concerned with aggrandizing their wealth. We are living in a post-revolutionary society. This may come across as simply an historical fact and of nothing of consequence, because we are so accustomed to modern ways of thought and the traditional order seems so antiquated. It is worth reflecting, even if we do feel that way, how radical a revolution this was. God was displaced by man. Any coming revolution, be it Bolshevik or a softer variety, will only be possible because the revolution of modernity has occurred. Holodomor 2.0 is simply the logical extension of man dethroning God in the revolution of modernity. Again, this is not to make light of the dark times ahead, but it is to put these future events into context and understand that we are not at the top of a hill and ready to fall down, but that we are already falling down a hill and have been so for a time. Understanding that we live in a post-revolutionary society can save us from the pitfalls of conservatism and free us from defending the current order. The right does not have a lot of resources or energy, so we need to concentrate it where it counts, and defending a post-revolutionary society is merely defending Communism 1.0 from Communism 2.0, so to speak. Let us, then, forget defending the current order and concentrate our limited resources on more fruitful endeavors. 1. The most manifest is Bill Gates rapidly buying as much farmland in the United States as possible, and is now the largest owner of farmland in the country. If one day Mr. Gates decided to starve the country, he could get pretty close. 2. A formal cause is the explanation of a thing via its essence, and a final cause is the explanation of a thing via its telos. 3. That there were abuses of the peasantry by the nobility only confirms the presence of the nobles oblige, as catching a ball before it hits the ground confirms the existence of gravity.